Welcome to The Buzz. We're going to have some fun, hear things you'll never hear anywhere else, and learn how to take 1 hour off your marathon PR. That may be an exaggeration, but I am Buzz Burrell, and we're going to have real conversations with the people who help define this amazing sport of running, which often feels like more than just a sport. So send me your questions and comments to buzz@ultrasignup.com so we can do this together. This is a production of Ultra Sign Up. Thank you for joining me. This is Buzz Burrell. I hope you're enjoying The Buzz. And don't forget that Ultra Sign Up has 2 other shows on its podcast network. Check out The Trailhead with Zoe Rome and Brendan Leonard, where they celebrate the quirks and culture of trail running as only those two can do. And Between Two Pines, our offbeat, laugh-out-loud show with Dom Grossman and Andy Pearson. And here's something new. Both The Buzz and The Trailhead are now on YouTube. So whether you want to listen on the run or watch from home, we've got you covered. Just search for Ultra Sign Up on YouTube and hit subscribe. This episode is brought to you by Wahoo Kicker Run. Their sponsorship made this episode possible. Wahoo Kicker Run is a very high-end treadmill, a game changer for indoor training. It has run-free mode, so the belt automatically adjusts to your pace based on your position with no buttons or fuss. It's the closest thing to running outside without going outside. And you can train for running in the mountains, because the automatic grade control mimics real-world terrain, shifting from a negative 3% decline to a steep 15% incline. In case you're wondering, I am a big proponent of treadmill training. I personally go to the gym once or twice a week in the winter and during inclement weather, and treadmills are great for tempo runs, for uphills, and they help improve your running form. So check out the Wahoo Kicker Run at wahoofitness.com. Good to see you again, Max.
As always, good to see you too, Buzz.
Thanks for saying that. The last time we saw each other, it had been raining for 6 days in a row, and you had just easily, well, looks to me easily, won a very big race.
Yeah, I would not say that was easy. Dragon's Back was no joke. I mean, it was 6 days of slogging through marshes, as you put it, and just like tons of vert and just the most uneven terrain across some of those hills that you can imagine. So it was not easy, but it was fun.
6 days across the entire country of Wales. Well, you were significantly ahead of me. But this is going to tie in our entire conversation. But first, hey, everybody, I'm talking with Max King of Bend, Oregon. And we're going to learn something right out of the gate here, which is, I think Max has the broadest range of any competitive runner in the United States, or maybe even the world. And we're going to explore that a little bit. But we're going to start by going through your bio. Pardon me, it's going to have to be pretty quick, because otherwise it would take forever. So let's look at this, though. You won the World Mountain Trophy Race, which is what the World Championships used to be called, in 2011. But then just 3 years later in Doha, you won the IAU 100-kilometer World Championship. So it's a 100-kilometer road race, and 3 years before, it was a 12-kilometer up and down steep race.
Yeah.
You've won Mountain Marathon in Alaska, which is the steepest race in America, possibly in the world. You've run the Broken Arrow VK and the 23K numerous times. You skied the Paraminta Skimo race in France. You've got a 4:05-mile PR, a 2:14 marathon. Okay, I got to catch my breath here. So I think I'm demonstrating that you have an incredibly wide range.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think so. And I like that versatility. And a lot of that, those wide swings in those disciplines, just it comes from my desire to have fun and to enjoy running. And so I jump back and forth all the time, and that's part of the fun of it. I enjoy doing this like gnarly mountain race one week and then jumping back on the track the next and trying to run really, really fast. To me, it's all really enjoyable, and that's what I get out of it. And years, decades now of training and racing and always finding a way to enjoy the next thing and never allowing things to get too stale. And that's why I'm still in it.
Definitely not stale. I mean, mountain marathon, VKs, like the rut VK, the broken arrow VK, they're not nearly as steep as mountain marathon. And it's an up and down also.
It is. I mean, you got, it's a mile and a half up, 3,000 feet, 3,022 feet in a mile and a half. But that first half a mile is basically through town. And so it's almost flat. You don't gain very much. So you got basically 1 mile of like 3,000 feet of vert. So yeah, it's pretty steep.
Sorry, I got to get control of myself. 3,000 feet of vert in 1 mile. So Bar Trail, Pikes Peak Marathon, I believe is more like 300 or 400 feet per mile. So that's steep. And then, like I said, you did 100 kilometers on the road at a very fast pace. And you just said you just enjoy it. It keeps things fresh. So how does this relate? Because people specialize now, don't they? I mean, there's people just doing 100-mile trail races, and that's all they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like people they've been specializing, right? I remember a guy that I used to run with. He lived in Portland, and when we kind of ran the marathon at the same time, and then I kind of diverged and went off on my way and started into trail running, and he stuck with the marathon, and he got better. He got his marathon time down a couple minutes. At the time, he was roughly around the times that I was running at about 2:12, 2:14, and he eventually ran, I think, a 2:09 or a 2:10. But he stuck with it for years and years, and that's kind of what I gave up in diversifying and doing all this variety of stuff. Is I gave up a few minutes in the marathon. I'll admit that. But that was like to have more fun and enjoyment out of my running. And if I had done that, I realized pretty early on that if I had stuck with things to that extent, it wasn't going to be fun for me, and I was going to lose that passion, and I was going to burn out and I wouldn't be a runner at this point. So I had to find ways so that I could continue running. And that was I burned out after college. And I had to basically, as I kind of started to miss it a little bit, I kind of made a pact with myself and said, as I was coming back, you know what, you can do this as long as it's fun. And so that's kind of the way I lived the rest of my career out, is just making sure that I was always having fun with it.
Wow. That's interesting words of advice, because sometimes we hear people talk about, pardon me, the pain cave and the dedication and commitment. And you are very committed. You train assiduously, and yet you've used the word fun here numerous times. Because you said after college, you were very competitive at Cornell University, you were a little bit done, and so you wanted to add in how it worked for you, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I stopped running after college for about 2 years and then slowly got back into things, but it wasn't back into running. I got back into adventure racing kind of recreationally with a team here in Bend that was admittedly a lot slower than I was, but I was having fun because it was just I was enjoying myself out there, and it wasn't that hard. I was just having a big adventure. And then I got more competitive. I missed that competitive side. I got into some off-road triathlons, Xterras, and I got more competitive. And then I'm like, oh man, I just really miss that really high competitiveness of the track. And so then I started to get back on the track and cross country and get back into that running world. And that's the time where I'm just you know what, I burnt out. And I didn't run for 2 years. I need to figure this out before I get back into this sport and ruin it all again. And so I had to make sure that relationship with running was healthy. And the way that I did that was by making sure that no matter what I did, I was always having fun with it.
Interesting. Okay. So how about training? So do you take what does a training block look like? If you're going to do mountain marathon or 100K on the road or Skimo, these are, like I said, these are incredibly wide-ranging. Do you block off a year? Do you block off the previous week? I mean, when do you get specific, if you ever do?
Yeah, it's a week or two. In those years, and now it's a little bit different. I'm definitely getting older, right? And training's training, but it's not the same as what it was at one time. When I was running high-performance marathons, track, and the 100K World Championships and mountain running, I was I was training at a high level the way that I always had, which means like I was doing a lot of threshold work. I was doing VO2 max work in blocks as I was leading up to these shorter distance races, long run, a little bit more structured and more regimented throughout the week, as you would see like in a college program, or a professional program. And that was very regimented. Now I'm a little looser on what I do. And through all that time, like I'm always like, I've got that baseline thread of high performance training. And then as I lead up to a race, it gets more specific. And so if I'm going to do like Mount Marathon, I am going to do a block of, 6 to 8 weeks before that. That's just focused on that hiking aspect. Cause let's be honest, like you're just hiking up Mount Marathon for the most part. Or the 100K. The 100K came about because I had put in a 3-month block leading into Western States the season before. So like 6 months before that. And I was incredibly fit going into Western States. It went well, not great, but well. Then throughout the summer, I kind of like recovered from Western States and started to ramp up at the end of the summer, leading back into that 100K, not with like a huge training block, but all that training came from the 6 months prior to that. And I clicked that off because of what I'd done the 6 months prior to that. And that was an incredibly like intense block of training where I was doing, almost every week, back-to-back long runs of like a really hilly, like 6 to 8 hour long run one day that was 20 miles, maybe 20 to 30 miles. And then the next day coming back with a 20 to 30 mile road run in about 2 to 3 hours at about 6-minute pace. And so that was like leading into that.
Wow. Well, you were fourth at Western States in 2014. Like you said, that's extremely good. You were third at Comrades. I mean, Comrades is not anymore, but at the time, back in the day, Comrades was the most competitive ultra race in the world.
Yeah, incredibly competitive. I think I was top 10. I was 8th there, I think. But I mean, I was a gold medal, and it was a gold medal for Comrades that I don't know if we've ever had or had at the time had ever had on the American side in the men's. I had a really good year when that downhill year at Comrades too. So
the American ladies have done well there.
The women have done incredibly well. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. And for those who don't know, Comrades is in South Africa, and it's a road race, but they are serious about that race. I mean, if you win the race, you're set for life.
Yeah. I mean, there's athletes there. It's crazy. There's athletes there that like, I don't understand why they don't show up on the world stage, because they would do really well. If not win the world championships in the 100K every year, they would at least be in the top 10 of the world championships. And they have such a depth in South Africa that do this race because it's so important to them and that culture that like the running culture down there is insane. It's amazing.
Indeed. Well, so you said you maintain degree of fitness, and you kind of, let's say 4 to 8 weeks out at least, you're going to become a little bit more specific, a little bit more focused. And Max, you've been on a podcast with me before, the Fastest Known podcast, a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And at that time, you said, this is a quote, "I'm uncoachable. I train for tempo, strength, endurance, and speed year round." So that's kind of still the case.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, and I guess I'd still say that I'm probably still uncoachable. I've still been coaching myself. I find it like I'm self-motivated enough. I enjoy coaching myself. If I had a coach, I would need a very specific goal that they could coach me towards, and they would definitely be able to get more out of me than I can get out of myself. Like there is like hands down, like a coach is a good idea. I would never say that. It's like purely like it's my own self-interest of like being able to do all of this different stuff. But if I could be faster if I had a coach. And I have had a coach in the past, like leading up to the marathon back in 2012. I was coached by my old college coach because I felt like at that time I needed to get that little bit more out of myself in order to qualify for the Olympic trials and do the best that I possibly could. And so like that's what a coach does for you, is like it gets that little bit more out of you that you can't get out of yourself.
I'm still trying to figure out your range here. And by the way, our friend Ricky Gates, quote, called you the fastest, most versatile distance runner. That was 9 years ago. And I think it's still the case, isn't it?
Well,
Because
it's debatable now. I mean, I'm definitely getting older. There's definitely guys faster. Like,
we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, third at Sierre-Zinal, which is the most competitive mountain race in the world. I think it still is. Third place is incredible, particularly when you look at the rest of the things. You do adventure races as well.
yeah, I mean, like I said, it's fun. That's why I do it.
Okay, so just before we leave this topic, let's just drill in just a little bit more. So going back to that quote from a minute ago, you do strength training year round, and you do some VO2 max training year round, and you do endurance training year round. So there's always, the mix is always there, and you might shift to a greater emphasis coming upon a specific event.
Yeah. And it's nothing revolutionary, it's like, it's the same thing that everybody else is doing. I've just chosen not to like try to specialize in any one thing. I feel like I got away with a lot back then when I was doing those types of races, like whether it was the 100K World Championships or Sierre-Zinal and other mountain races and stuff. It's like a lot of times I was just incredibly fit, and so I was using that fitness where in whatever capacity I could at that time, and laying in a little bit of specificity here and there. The one thing I will say is that like what I was not good at when I started to jump over into European mountain running was like that when there was a ton of vert in a race, I fell apart. Like Sierre-Zinal, my first year, I was just writing an ultra running article about this the other day, actually. I fell apart. I was 81st at my first Sierre-Zinal. And I remember like laying on the side of the trail, just falling apart, with everybody just like passing me by. And I had like, there was a big learning curve in figuring out exactly how to approach that type of training and to be better at that and to be a better European specific mountain runner. I could run, I could convert over my marathon fitness and track fitness into races like Way Too Cool and Chuckanut and Western States and the Road 100K Championships and JFK and all of those. But what I could not do was a mountain race with 10,000 feet of vert in it. I would just explode and fall apart. And so that was like a very specific time of like figuring out how to do that and changing all of my training around in order to be able to hang with guys like Killian and Stian and all those European guys who could just crush those climbs and stuff.
Interesting story. 81st to 3rd. So you made some adjustments.
I did. Had to learn how to run uphill more efficiently and faster.
Well, anyway, it's funny. You just mentioned Ultra Running Magazine. You're a columnist there, as am I. And my recent submission was on mountain racing, and I mentioned this. An odd little coincidence here.
Good. It'll tie right into my article.
It's like we've been cooperating. But certainly when you first go to Europe, you notice this. The gun goes off, and suddenly you're in 30th place 10 seconds later. They drop the hammer. They're good technically, and they're quick.
Yeah. And really efficient going uphill too. It is truly amazing. Like when you live in those types of mountain environments, like how good and efficient you get at just being able to go uphill. And we don't have that ability to do that over here. And all the training that I had done on trails here in Bend was basically what you would call flat. I mean, some people wouldn't consider it flat, but I mean, it was flat by their standards. And so I had to like start working on like, treadmill uphill. I got a Skimo set up and I started doing Skimo because I realized like all of those guys were doing Skimo in the winter. And they were building tons of base fitness for the climbing that they were doing in the summer mountain races. And so I changed that. I started doing that in the winter. Coincidentally, it also took some load off my legs and made it so that I could, just a little bit fresher in the summer as well. So making those changes and stuff to like adapt your body to the demands that you have or that you want to, excel at during the summer makes a lot of sense.
Interesting. You learn quickly because like you said, Skimo is quadpedal. I mean, we're bipedal, we're using 2 legs, but we're using 2 legs and 2 arms. Your cardiac capacity is just going to go up. It's just going to get bigger. So then when you go take off the poles and take off the skis and get on a dry trail, you got that big power still in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only that, but I mean, your biomechanics are different too, right? I mean, instead of like a little run up the hill, you're just walking up the hill, right? Which people would think like, oh, that's just going to slow you down. But what it does is actually gives you a lot of strength for climbing those mountains in the summer. And for whatever reason, like that, like increases that aerobic capacity because you slowed all that down. And so you're fully in the aerobic zone. And so you just like build up massive amounts of aerobic capacity just hiking up hills and strength on top of that. So you've had that ability going into the summer season.
I don't want to digress too much, but this is an interesting topic because on February 19th and 21st, Skimo is in the Olympics.
Yeah.
The first time ever. So it's the only new sport being added to the Cortina Games. That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm excited for Cam and Anna too. Like friends with both of them. I've been commenting on Cam's posts that he's putting out. He's putting out some goofy posts. They're great. But it's really fun to see, and I'm so excited for those two. It's awesome that they qualified for the games and get to be there and showcase Skimo in the Olympics. So.
They were on 2 episodes ago. Pardon me. Anna wasn't, Cam was, and Nikki La Rochelle, who's going to be doing the commentary for the Olympic Channel. So go back 2 episodes from this one in case you want to catch up with Cam and Nikki on Skimo, or turn on the TV on the 19th and the 21st.
Yeah, that's cool.
So this is just from memory. This doesn't come up on Wikipedia, but Max, I think you told me a number of years ago, you won the Warrior Dash. The Warrior Dash, there's this whole obstacle course rage. There's a bunch of them. I can't remember how many there were, but I think you told me that was your largest prize purse ever.
Yeah, that didn't come up on Wikipedia. I can't believe that.
It wasn't in a Trail Runner magazine article either, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it was the heyday of like the obstacle racing, right? And that was like, I'm like, oh, well, I should have a body type to do that. Like, let me try this sport out. And I got into it a little bit, and it was like, it's another one of those things of like, this could be fun. Let's try it out. And so I got into it a little bit, and then ended up at Warrior Dash, and it was perfect for me because it was basically a 5K, so really fast. None of the obstacles were like heavy lifts, which is what was the hard part about like Spartan racing and the other races and stuff. It was all efficiency based, like how fast you could get over a wall, how quickly you could crawl through the mud, how fast you could just like destroy your body getting through something. And like, as back then I had like no regard for like my body and any parts of it. So I would just run through walls, and and it was really fun. And so, yeah, it was like a big payday, and then it went away, unfortunately. So
it went away.
Yeah.
But how ironic. I mean, being a fabulous runner, but your biggest payday was doing something, a 5K obstacle course race.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that goes straight back to my high school days. So I come from a really well-respected and well-renowned wrestling school. So Crater High School is one of the best wrestling schools in the state. It was back when I was in high school. It still is. And so half of our cross-country team are wrestlers. And so we'd go out, we'd go for a little jog, I'd go run, come back, and we'd all wrestle. And so that was training and that was practice, right? It's like, go run for a bit and then come back and wrestle. And so I never actually wrestled on the team, but I got plenty of it within the team, like the cross country team and stuff. And so that goes straight back to obstacle racing. It's like, well, yeah.
I have never heard that before.
No.
I don't think there's a duathlon of running and wrestling.
No, but if there was, man, I would crush it. It would be so good.
Well, you're definitely not the scrawny little runner type. I appreciate that. Shifting into that, here's something else I'm going to propose. Every top runner in the world knows you, respects you, probably because they've lost you at some point. It's possible many runners, and maybe people listening to this podcast, have not heard that much about you. And I'm just going to put this out there as a possibility. Would that be because the word UTMB is not associated with your resume? I'm not seeing you have ever done any of these glamour ultras. I mean, you win everything else, but not these glamour 100-mile races.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Like, why that would be. I think There's there's always waves in any sport. Like things come and go. And I, like you were mentioning, third at Sierre-Zinal. Well, I was third at Sierre-Zinal, and I was third at Mount Blanc Marathon that year. And I had another race in there that over in Europe that was really good that year. All three of those races that went really well that year were not part of the Golden Trail Series in 2017, but in 2018 they were. And so, that was the rise of that Golden Trail Series. And when that happened and took off, when I got out of that type of racing, well, I was injured for like a year. And so I kind of like faded away from that and got into other stuff, some longer distance things and other types of races. I wanted to do some other things. UTMB and those races are kind of the same way. I mean, I'm definitely getting older. I'm at the point in my career now where like I'm not as focused on the really highly competitive races. Sometimes out of like sponsorship obligations and stuff, or just sheer will, like I want to do a competitive race. I'll jump into some stuff like that. But really, like what I'm finding to be like really enjoyable now are the races where I'm ticking them off my bucket list. Like they are the races I've heard about since I was a kid, or was 20 years old just getting into the sport, and I'd heard like, oh man, Mount Marathon is this race up in Alaska, and it's like I hear that it's like insane and it's crazy. Well, it's not that competitive, so it doesn't fit in this time of my life. I'm going to get there eventually. And now's the time where I'm doing those types of things. I'm planning on trying to get into Dipsea this year. That's a race that I've known about since college, because we watched the movie in college, and my coach used to talk about it of being like this like mythical race. So it has these wave starts, and there's an entire old movie about it that we watched, and it's the oldest trail race in the United States. And it's like, that's so cool. Well, it doesn't really fit if you're like trying to be a high level professional athlete, right? But now that's what I'm into, and that's what I want to go do. And so it's those types of things,
Well, forget UTMB. I mean, if you live in Marin, who cares? I mean, the Dipsea.
That's right. Yeah.
If you got a black shirt, you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing in, the Alaskan community with Mount Marathon. It's like, that is the biggest thing going up there. And I love that about those communities. And that's why those races are so special, is because they have the tradition, they have the history, and they have that like local community support behind them that like really like has this whole culture around the race. And that's what I find so special. And Dragon's Back is the same way. There's races all over the world like this that now I'm starting to try to tick off my bucket list because they've been there for so long, and now I got to get to them because that's what I want to experience now, are those types of things and those types of races. So.
Dipsea will be a little more fun than Dragon's Back, in my personal opinion.
We'll see. Yeah.
But like you say, the community, as it happens, I was on the email thread. And so you were being recruited to the Pelican Track Club. And, so I'm getting this email. Hey, I think we're trying to get Max in. And then Matthias Sarri comes in and says, no, we're recruiting him for. And I think all of a sudden you got the picture that these people are really into it at a different level.
I had no idea that this was going to be a big controversy. I talked to Jeff the other day, and I offhand mentioned Dipsea, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm getting texts from Matthias, like saying, "Hey, no, buddy, you're on our team. Like, we recruited you, and you gave us a verbal commitment. You are on our team." And so I had no idea that there was even this cross country scoring to Dipsea. I thought it was a completely individual race. So I'm still learning things.
Right. It's complicated.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Jeff, you mentioned Jeff, that would be Jeff Stern. And I think he said that it's a 2-part race. Yet you supposedly, unless you get some pull, do the runners division the first time, but just, 500 or 1,000 people, I actually forgot. And then the next year you get to do the Invitational, which is also 500 people. So is that right? You're going to start with the runners division, you think?
I'm going to, unless like for whatever reason they give me a bye and it's totally cool with all the other runners. I have heard that some runners have been able to get a bye, and that does not go over very well with the local community. I want to do this the right way, and I want the local community to not be upset with me because I want to do things the way that they want things done. And so like that's part of like, when you go into any new community, it's like you're an outsider and you don't want to upset the natural order of things. And I don't plan on doing that. And so if it means this is a 2-year commitment for the Dipsea in order to go through the runner's wave to get into the invitational wave, so be it. I will do that, and make sure that I, go through the right channels to do that.
Excellent. It was a fun conversation. It's so fun. No one offered me to buy, that's for bloody sure. But then I won the runners division, so that bumped me in the invitational the next time. That was kind of fun. But then once you get in the invitational division, I think you're about the same age as Chris Lundy.
She's a little older than I am, I think, at this point.
Oh, that's too bad.
I think she's 50-ish.
Because you want them to be, younger is better. Because it means she's going to even have a head start on you. And, she knows every pine cone on the trail.
Yeah.
But, that's how these people are.
But I'm not worried about Chris. I'm worried about you, Buzz, and like the other 70-year-olds in that division and the 8-year-old girls that are there as well that have like a half an hour head start on me. Those are the ones I'm worried about.
Right. Well, we actually tap out at 22 minutes head start, but still 22 minutes is substantial.
Yeah, it's substantial. Yeah. But I'm getting a handicap like as I get older, which is pretty exciting. So I'm not having to start with all the like super elites and stuff. I get a couple of minutes over them at this point.
Correct. But then you're always looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. We should clarify for everyone listening that the Dipsea is a handicapped race, but they do it literally physically. So people will start in waves from the slowest to the fastest. So the open people, they start at 8 a.m. or whatever, while the oldest people, and it's just by age and gender. It's not by previous times. It's pure age and gender, can start up to 22 minutes in advance. And then it's the first one to the finish line wins. And so I'm starting kind of early on there. But boy, there's 500 people coming fast. So it's an odd feeling.
Yeah. Well, and like in looking at it, as I was doing my research for this, like it's really amazing, like the formulas they use to do this handicap. They're very specialized, and they change from year to year. If there's an age group that's getting a little bit too fast, they'll ease it back by 30 seconds or a minute, and they'll change these around and all these formulas. And so it's quite scientific, which I did not realize. I thought it was like every 5 years you just get another minute, but it's not. And so they have done it so well that I have seen Alex Varner's won it, I believe. Chris Lundy has won it. A 70-year-old woman has won it, I believe, a couple of years ago.
Diane Fitzpatrick.
And an 8-year-old girl has won it.
Yep.
All within the past probably 10 years or so.
Yes.
And so they're doing something right with the handicapping. It's pretty amazing.
It's remarkably fair. Like you said, they just adjust the formula if need be, so everyone literally has an equal chance to cross the finish line.
It's pretty cool. And that's why I'm excited to get into Dipsea and try it out.
Excellent. Well, you've mentioned age a couple times. So your birthday's in 2 weeks. What is that? You turned 46. Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Well, not sure where to say sorry about that or good job. It kind of goes both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm getting closer to 50 than 40 now, which is,
Well, before Dragon's back in Wales, last time I saw you was at the USATF Trail Marathon Championships in Moab, where you won overall and set the course record as a master. So I just kind of want to say you are hanging in there. You can compete in the open division as a master.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to keep it going as long as I possibly can. And while I will fully embrace that master's category whenever it's around, I am trying to compete with the open guys whenever possible. So for sure.
Right. Well, I was warming up at that race with my son, Galen. He came there. He was hoping to win the Masters. We kind of jogged around getting warmed up, and you jogged by and went, uh-oh, sorry about that, Galen. Indeed, he was second to you in the Masters. So how is this gone? I mean, that's a super open question, Max, but, 46 in 2 weeks, what does that mean? Do you have aches and pains, or you just gotten a little slower, or what does it look like to you?
I'm definitely getting slower. I noticed that. Like my speed and stuff, it's just not quite the same as it used to be. I can't get it back. It doesn't seem like, no matter how hard I try and how hard I work out, I'm either going to get injured first or like plateau. I've got aches and pains like everybody does. I mean, I've had aches and pains since I was in my 20s, honestly. Let's, be honest. If you're trying to be a professional athlete, like nothing ever feels great because you're always on that edge of breaking down or not training hard enough. And so, like, you always have aches and pains. Well, like the things that I've noticed are like taking care of your body. Like a couple years ago, so 2 years ago, I like tore my meniscus, thought it was okay. So I started taking collagen. Within a couple weeks taking collagen, and this is like no means am I promoting this at all. Like I noticed a definite difference getting out of bed in the morning. Like body felt better, like just getting out of bed. So things like that, I find help. And then I tore my meniscus again last year at Barkley, had surgery on it, and it took a while to come back. Now I feel like I'm fully back and things feel good there. But it's like everybody's got aches and pains. I take care of myself as best I can through things like taking collagen, but also like knowing when to rest, knowing when to push hard, like what types of workouts I get the most out of, and how hard to push on them, and then like foam rolling, strength work, all of that sort of stuff as well. Keeping all that in there and making sure that my body feels good on a daily basis. And I will say, like, I think one of the biggest things, and I don't know if this is even age related, really. I've been doing this for 30 years now.
Let's hear it.
I just don't have the motivation. Like I find like motivation is hard. Like when I was 30, like doing a big block of marathon training for 3 months, I could do. If I try to do the same level, I can get through 4 weeks and I'm just kind of exhausted. And so that's where like part of that slowdown is probably like from that motivation. Part of it's got to be physiological as well, but that motivation just is not there to keep me pushing that hard for an extended period of time anymore.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know if you notice the same thing. Like you've been running a long time, a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, it's 58 years. So 58 years ago, I ran my first marathon distance, which, of course, much longer than most of my friends have been alive. And I wrote an article, we mentioned Ultra Running Magazine a few minutes ago, where I took strong exception to the old saying, only as old as you think you are. And that's just complete rubbish. I mean, it's just absurd. It's an affront. It's an insult. There's a biological aging process and it makes a difference, but we can certainly optimize and do the best we can. You mentioned you bumped up a supplement. You take collagen peptides now, which is good for the connective tissue. And you're probably doing other things. You mentioned stretching and rolling. You do that actively year round. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There's something called sarcopenia, where the loss of muscle mass, because as you get older, enzyme that converts protein into muscle diminishes. So have you increased your strength training as the years have gone by?
No, I would say I've increased it. If anything, I've almost decreased it. And that's not not for lack of trying. It's just like a lack of time and that commitment. But no, I mean, I don't strength train as much as I was at certain times in my 30s when I really got into strength training. Would I like to increase that? Yes, I would. I just need more time in the day. And creatine is all the rage right now to prevent that muscle degradation and keep some muscle mass on there. I tried that. I think I gained like 8 pounds, probably just from water weight, just not muscle mass at all. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm heavy now. My VO2 max is going down just because I'm gaining weight. And so that's never something you want to see on the scale at night, but it is what it is. But that's those things like that are supposed to help. I don't know if that's helped yet, but maybe.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, creatine is the rage. One of the 5 supplements that I think the FDA says are viable and credible. We're hearing about more of them all the time. Speaking of which, Max, this is a question I ask many of my guests. This is random, but it's kind of in the news today. So if you're doing a longer event, more than, say, a half marathon, are you getting to that supposedly optimum number of 400 calories per hour? Or what are you doing in terms of your caloric intake on a strenuous race?
Yeah. What's really funny is that back in 2008, when I started getting into ultras, 2008 was my first 50K. I probably took about 100 calories an hour in that race and came back and talked to Jeff Browning. And I'm like, man, I just got destroyed. I was walking the last 7 miles of that race. He's like, man, you need to eat more. Try getting your calories up to about 400 calories an hour. And then over the next 2 years, it took me several more 50Ks and 50 miles to realize he was right and to actually get it to 400 calories an hour. And so from about 2010, 2011 onwards, I've always done 300 to 400 calories an hour. 400 calories an hour for sure in a 50K. And then as you go up in distance, because the intensity comes down slightly, maybe slightly less than that. But it's
Wow.
now everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's new news. It's no, that's not new. That's just some guys actually trying it and having good results and then talking about it. Whereas we used to do that all the time. That's what Browning showed me. And I mean, Browning's 54, 55 now. And he's been doing that. And he's a low carb guy. And so he was, he used to live in Bend. And I was getting into ultras. He was my mentor and just kind of showing me the way. And it took me a while to really kind of grasp the fact that you needed that many calories per hour, because I started at 100 and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll increase that to 200. And it's oh God, I'm bonking again at the end. And then I'm going to increase it more till I finally got up to about 300 to 400 calories an hour. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm nailing the ends of the 50Ks and 50 miles that I'm doing now. And so it was
Good tip.
yeah, it was now it's all of everybody says it's new. It's no, it's not new. It's been around a while.
Well, you just mentioned 15, 16 years ago. So
Yeah.
good story on that. Jim Walmsley told me the same thing, by the way.
Yeah, good.
He said, yeah, I've been doing this for quite a long time. Okay, nice. You have been in sport for a long time, obviously. And we're going to shift gears here a little bit to see what you think about a few things. You've been a Salomon guy forever. And now you announced, when was it, a month or two ago, you're now sponsored by Kailas Fuga, a Chinese shoe company. Wow, that's one hand, so what? On the other hand, gosh, you were a Salomon guy for a long time. How does that feel?
11 years with Salomon. And I was kind of at the point where I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay here. And then all of a sudden, Kailas came along. And several things happened with Salomon where it just kind of felt like the right time. Right time to make the switch. Good time in my career to do that. To go over kind of to this a little bit. It is smaller company. They have a huge market share in China, and you go over there and everybody's in Kailas shoes, and but new over here, in the US, nobody's heard of them at all. They're distributing in France and Italy and have a pretty good presence there. I mean, they sponsor the Tour and a couple of other races around that area, big races. And so it's getting quite a following there. And I suspect they'll do the same thing here. I mean, I got the shoes. I enjoy the shoes. They're great. I mean, they work really, really well. They have a limited number of models, but that's totally fine, right? And the gear is good. They're kind of have this big background in mountaineering and climbing, and so they do a lot of that. And they're kind of fairly recently, I think about 2015 or so, they started to get into trail running. It's only been within the last 2 to 3 years that they've really started to step up their game as far as the shoes, the apparel, all of that stuff, where it's kind of come into its own and been a viable option for runners. But so it's a relatively new company, young. I feel like I can have some impact there and feel like I can make a difference. And so I'm really excited about it. And it's kind of like this new chapter in my career, basically. And so, yeah.
Nice. One interesting irony here is, of course, Salomon is a highly credible brand. You see people, the Winter Olympics have started already. And of course, the way the skiers do it, as soon as you come down, maybe if you get on the podium of a ski race, the first thing you do is you take off your skis, you put them up next to your face. So as soon as you're on TV, you get to see the brand. Runners don't do that. Do you imagine it? Come to think of it. So what happens if you win a trail race, you reach down, you take off your shoes and you hold them up on your shoulders so people can see what they are? That would be a different look.
I've seen people do that though. They'll take them off, tie them up, and then put them over their shoulders, just like you would skis. I've seen that before.
Right.
So yeah.
All right.
Well, maybe I'll start doing that, Buzz.
Maybe you should start doing that. Then you can renegotiate your contract. But anyway, Salomon's a highly credible company, but a lot of people didn't know is that they were owned by Amer Sports, a Finnish holding company. And 3 or 4 years ago, Amer sold to a Chinese shoe company. Yep. So Salomon is actually owned by Anta Sports, a Chinese shoe company. And so you kind of went from one Chinese shoe company to another. So it's not that earth-shaking in a certain perspective.
Yeah, if you look at it like that, yeah. No, I mean, I did it for a lot of reasons. I love Salomon. I would never speak poorly of Salomon. Love their products. Love everybody that works there and stuff. It was just a time to make a change. It's nothing against them, and they have great products. But it was time for a change. I mean, I'm obviously getting, like we've said several times in this podcast, I'm getting older, and they have a lot of young athletes on the team, on that international team, and so it just was a good time to make a switch. And Kailas, I went over there a couple of weeks ago to sign papers, and there happened to be a race that weekend. So I jumped in a race over in Guangzhou and ran this incredible mountain race over in China, met everybody at the company, met the founder, and incredibly, great experience, all around. The people are super nice, very friendly. The headquarters that they have in Guangzhou is an absolutely amazing facility. It's this, it's an old sports complex from when they had the Asia Games. They were saying 30 years ago or so. They retrofitted an old building in this sports complex. So there's a stadium and a track, and then there's 100 miles of ping pong tables that are completely full of people playing ping pong. There's a huge track around the stadium that people are walking and running on in the evenings. Their building itself has a huge climbing wall on the side of it. They have a rooftop pool on the top with a deck, and they had a huge party up there one of the nights I was there. And it's you're standing up there, and all of the huge skyscrapers from the city are surrounding you and they're all lit up and everything else. It's incredible. Wow. And the store down below is incredible. They just have a great facility, and they're doing some really cool stuff with the company, with the product and all of that. And it's a privately owned, small company. It's not some big corporation. The founder he was in a ski accident, I think back in around 2013 or so. He's in a wheelchair, but he's just super passionate about the outdoors. He still skis, he still travels, he still does huge adventures. All the people that I was interacting with were all running the race that I was that weekend. From the head marketing manager that was there, she ran the 60K with me. My other marketing person that I was talking to, she ran the 30K. The media person that I was talking to, she was running the Hong Kong half marathon that weekend. I mean, it's cool.
Extremely legitimate.
Yeah, people are doing what they do, and they're practicing the sports and getting out and walking the walk, which was cool to see.
And the Asian market is massive. So you look at, we mentioned UTMB. There's now 55 races owned or operated by the UTMB group, and many of them are in China now and in Asia, because those are some big numbers. And you see at a lot of the big ultras, you see Chinese people doing quite well in them. So thanks for that story. I think all Kailas Fuga has to do is show a photo of that rooftop pool and the climbing wall, and they're going to sign anyone they want. They brought a couple people from Hoka, some French fellows, and a couple guys from Switzerland came over from formerly of New Balance. So, like you said, they're making a statement.
Oh, I don't know if you saw it too. They just signed Chris Sharma.
Chris Sharma?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. By the way, people, Chris Sharma used to, not anymore, but he's a legendary rock climber. He used to be the best rock climber in the world.
Still pretty good. He's like me. He's like me in the climbing department, but maybe a little better than me.
Yeah, he's still pretty good. I appreciate that.
Yep.
So what's I like the sound of enthusiasm in your voice when you talked about you were flown over to Guangzhou, which is a city of like 20 million people. I mean, it's you're flying into this city. It takes the plane 30 minutes to get to the airport. But
It's huge.
It's massive. It's next level stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's massive. And the cool thing about this race, back to the race, like the race was, I think, 5,000 people, and they were like, yeah, this is like a medium-sized race. And I'm like, this thing is monstrous. Our race, like there was 100K with like 1,000 people. I was in the 70K, and it had at least 2,000 people. There was a 30K with, I think, like another 3,000 people. Huge, right? Like these races are monstrous. The expo and the festival and everything else, just like what you would expect out of like a huge, like big city marathon. And then take off, we run through some city streets and on some like park paths, and we're up in the mountains and we're running up these mountain paths, steep technical trail, down technical trail, down the mountain on the other side, and then poop back out into a big city. And we're like, what's going on? We're back in a city. It's like a road marathon for like a mile or two through the city with like scooters zipping by, massive like overpasses overhead, and like these big city streets. And we're just zipping through neighborhoods and everything else. And then we hit another mountain. We're back up into the mountains. And we did this like several times through this race. It was like one of the most unique races I've ever done, because you're like up into the mountains and then back down into the city and then back up into the mountains and down into the city over and over again. And you get into these other like parts of the mountains, and there's these big mountain parks that are right next to the city. And these mountain parks have like these paved trails through them. Like they're these concrete paved trails for like miles, just winding through the woods, and stairs everywhere, kind of like what you'd get in like Hong Kong and stuff. But super unique. You're just running through the woods on these like paved trails, and there's tons of tourists just from the city out for their walk on the weekend too.
Well, you've gotten a chance to see trail mountain running become a worldwide sport. I mean, that's no other way to put it. I mean, you from Bend, Oregon, to the forays into Europe, and now you're flown to Guangzhou, China, and you saw, wow, there's what is it? I forgot how many people live in China now. How many billions of people?
Yeah.
We kind of lose track of that one.
It's a lot.
But when they do something, they go all in.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
they don't mess
like
around.
It. No, they don't.
Because the government throws in. I mean, here the government, almost like you're fighting the government, and you kind of have to try to carve out your space to get the permit and so forth. But there the government says, yeah, we support trail running. So all of a sudden everyone reads that there's trail running everywhere.
Yeah. And I mean, they had that big accident a couple of years ago up in the mountains. I mean, you remember that. And I think that shut down kind of that type of trail running, from what I understand, for a little while. And man, like whatever it was, like now it's back and it's big, and it's absolutely massive. And because of that, or I mean, I'm speculating here, but maybe because of that accident, the races are so well run. They're just on point with like safety measures, the marking, organization, all of that sort of stuff seems just on point. Especially with a 5,000 person race, it's got to be, right. You don't want people getting lost or anything else. And it was pretty interesting to see that.
I don't recall the number, but we both remember that it was a snowstorm.
Yeah.
And everyone's up there with their skimpy little shorts and singlets on, when they probably should have been wearing a little bit more clothes. I think 26 people died. It was
somewhere around
bad.
30-ish or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad. So, Max, you've seen the progression of this from Bend to Alaska to now China, Annecy in between, Annecy, France. So what are you seeing next? Or help me out here. Are you concerned about where this is going? Or are you just kind of happy to see the evolution?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, Buzz. And I would, somebody asked me this the other day, and it's like, what are you concerned about? And it's like, well, kind of concerned that it's getting a little bit too big, right? Like you see these big races that are 5,000 person races. You go to Mont Blanc Marathon and you've got a race expo that's the size of a city block, and it takes you an hour to wind your way through to get your bib. And where I come from a little bit that old school trail running. I've been to the big city, like marathons and stuff like that, and I appreciate that. I What I don't want to see happen is for trail running to lose its soul and for it to all be commercialized like that. It has a purpose. I'm not against it. I do feel like it has a purpose and it supports athletes like myself, right? It supports more people getting out there and getting excited about trail running. So there is definitely like a good side to having this massive sport. On the other side of it, like, I don't want to lose like the little like local race that's 100 people and everybody shows up and they draw a line in the sand and the race director says, go. You take off and it's all hand timed and you get done and you sit around at the finish line with all your buddies, have a beer and a burrito. I don't want to lose that either. And the good thing is, the thing that I'm not afraid of is that we're going to lose that. I am confident that that will always be there. And so I am not afraid of what's happening on the bigger side of the sport, the UTMBs, the more commercialization with the sport, because there's always going to be a place for those little races, those little community races, and those will always be there. And we can always participate in those no matter what. And so, that's the flip side of it. I think that trail running is growing and it is getting pretty massive, but on the other side of it, we'll always have that homegrown trail running soul of these smaller races. So
They'll always both be here.
They will.
And people can just pick and choose. If you want to aspire to go to the big circus and figure out how to accumulate your points to get into UTMB Mont Blanc, it's a pay-to-play game. You have to enter their other events. Great. Go for it. It's a remarkable experience. Or if you want to just forego that whole thing and make some new friends, literally, and come down to the pub, as they say in the fell running in England, you can do that too. It all belongs. It's all still here.
Yeah. I love that for our sport, and the fact that we have that ability to live in both of those worlds, right? And for the sport to live in both of those worlds.
Well, something that come up in my mind, Max, maybe it has yours right now as well. Speaking of, the finish line and the starting lines and the big to-dos, the way we kicked off this podcast was by a very brief allusion to the Dragon's Back race across Wales. And as you recall, it started inside a castle. I mean, inside a castle with the Welsh National Men's Choir singing. I mean, it wasn't
cool. It was so cool.
I mean, you're like crying at the start of this. It was so artistic, and you're seeing the dawn, the first light coming up over the top of the castle parapets, and you go out through the gate, run across the parapet, and it was like, that's different.
Yep. It was. Like, I don't even know how. Like, I don't really have words for it, right? Like, there's I don't know. I don't want to disparage road races, but road races are road races. You line up on a city street, and then there's a line and a banner, and you start and you finish. Trail racing it's different, man. And that's what's cool about it. I've stood on so many start lines and crossed so many finish lines that are completely unique in this sport, that is what's amazing about it. Anything from Dragon's Back, starting in a castle, we finished in a castle, and then to the local 50K on the Rogue River down here, that's kind of not too far away from my childhood home. We started right in the middle of the forest and we ran right onto a trail, and finished coming up a trail, right into basically nothing. And so, yeah, it's really unique. And the Guangzhou race of starting in this city metropolis and running out into the hills and into the mountains and then coming back into the city. So, yeah, it's cool.
And it's all good. And we can keep doing it, pick and choose.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it, man. We have choices we can make. We can pick what races we want to go to.
Max, it has been a delight speaking with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on, Buzz. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you for joining me. I feel like I'm with all my friends. This is Buzz Burrell, and I'll be back 2 weeks from today, delivering more thoughts you've probably never heard before. This podcast is a production of Ultra Sign Up and releases every other Tuesday, alternating with The Trailhead with Zoe Rome and Brendan Leonard. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe and click that button that says 5 stars, because that helps other people find this.